Give us 10 minutes, we'll give you an explanation of world events. I'm Carl Azus for CNN Student News. First up this Thursday, struggles in France. Authorities there have cleared out the jungle, the nickname for a massive migrant and refugee camp that had swelled in the French port city of Calais. Many of the people there were from war-torn, violent, or impoverished countries. They've streamed by the hundreds of thousands into Europe, and the jungle formed because Calais is just miles from Britain, the country where many of the migrants want to start over. But European Union rules say they have to apply for asylum to stay in the first European country where they set foot. So authorities in France are trying to resettle them there. Part of that process involves clearing out camps like the jungle, where living conditions were terrible and French officials say crime rates were uncontrollable. But other camps are growing in several other places, like parts of Paris. And though French law says migrants are eligible for housing while they're waiting to see if they can legally stay in France, there's a serious shortage of housing in Paris. With more migrants arriving daily, the strain on the city becomes more visible.
The Calais jungle is now a thing of the past. Its tents torn down and its inhabitants relocated to emergency shelters in France's regions. But as the camp in Calais has closed, others have grown, like this one near a Paris metro station.
As we know that the Paris are opening the door, there are rumors in the whole Europe that the France is giving the paper, so all of them are coming towards France right now.
The numbers of migrants living rough around Stalingrad station have swelled over the course of the last couple of weeks from several hundred to 2,500, according to the aid associations who help them. We're talking about Eritrean, Somali, Sudanese and Afghan nationals, most of whom have applied for asylum here in France. They're simply waiting now for their applications to be processed and living in the meantime in the most appalling conditions.
Sarah is just 17 years old. She arrived at the Stalingrad camp a week ago, and she says she's had no help in claiming asylum.
It's very cold. Some boys drinking, they talking together. How we can't sleep? When I sleep in the night, I cry. Always I can cry. How I can't sleep?
Are you scared?
I worry myself. I don't have anybody there.
Soon, migrants arriving in Paris will be taken to this camp in the north of the city. It was due to open in October, and it shouldn't be long, say authorities. After Calais, they want migrants off all of France's streets. Stalingrad is to be cleared by the end of the week, its tents torn down and its inhabitants relocated to emergency shelters in the greater Paris region. The question is, how many more will be drawn to the streets of a country that now appears to be offering more than just its streets? Melissa Bell, CNN, Paris.
With 8 justices and 1 vacancy, the U.S. Supreme Court's about a month into its newest session. It'll probably run until the beginning of next summer. The High Court has taken up a pretty wide range of cases. One involves whether the stripes and badges of a cheerleading outfit can be protected by copyright. One involves alleged racial bias by a juror in a case in Colorado. One involves money that the Apple technology company won in a case involving a patent dispute with the Samsung tech company. There's a lot for justices to consider in these cases alone, but it begs the question, how did they get on the docket in the first place with so many lawsuits playing out across the country?
For the Supreme Court, the big issue is often what cases they hear as much as how they decide those cases. The justices get thousands of petitions every year asking them to hear cases, but they only agree to decide about 70 of those cases. The main reason the justices take a case is what's known as a split in the circuits. There are 13 circuit courts of appeals, and sometimes 2 of those circuits address the same issue and come out differently. In almost all those cases, the Supreme Court agrees to decide the case. Now, what kind of cases do they take? The Supreme Court only deals with federal law, so they will only decide cases that involve interpreting federal laws or cases that involve the U.S. Constitution, which is the ultimate law of the land. Sometimes the justices do what's called strategic voting. They think, I think this lower court decision is wrong, but if I vote to hear this case, my colleagues will make the law even worse. So I'm going to vote to leave the case alone rather than risking a bad Supreme Court decision that could last for decades. We often hear about 5-4 Supreme Court decisions, but it's always worth remembering that it only takes 4 justices to make the most important decision of all, which is to hear the case in the first place.
Farming the wind. America's first offshore wind farm is about to open. These large turbines will be located about 3 miles off the coast of Block Island, which is south of Rhode Island. The cost to build the project, $300 million. These turbines are huge, almost 600 feet tall from the bottom to the tip top of the fan blade. It took a while for people to get behind this project. Some fishermen were concerned about the impact on their industry. The Kennedys, a prominent American political family, were concerned about how the turbines would look. You can see some offshore wind farms from the beach. Most of the world's offshore turbines are in Europe. Leases for the American ones were issued by the Department of the Interior, which oversees U.S. land management and conservation. These turbines will start whirring this month, and their developer estimates they'll reduce Block Island's electric rates by 40%. Well, we are 5 days away from the election that will determine America's next president. Election day is Tuesday, November 8th. And the latest polls suggest it could be a very close race between Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump and Democratic presidential nominee Hillary Clinton. The CIA World Factbook describes America's government type not as a democracy, but as a federal presidential republic. U.S. voters do not directly choose their leaders. They choose a group of electors who actually determine the president. This group is called the Electoral College, and while you've heard it defined and seen the Electoral College map, how exactly does the system work?
What is the Electoral College? The Electoral College is not a building or institution. It's just the name given to a designated group of people who cast each state's official votes for president. This group is made up of 538 people. Each state has a different number of electors based on their representatives in Congress. So, states like California and Texas have more votes than states like North and South Dakota. The only exception? The District of Columbia, which has 3 electors, despite not having any voting members in Congress. How does it work? Each party selects their own group of electors. Each state then empowers the electors who represent the candidate who won the most votes, except Nebraska and Maine, who award electors based on a combination of statewide results and districts won. The candidate who receives at least 270 Electoral College votes becomes the next president. What if there's a tie? If there is a tie, or if somebody doesn't get to 270, the House of Representatives appoints the president, and the Senate chooses the vice president. Why does this system exist? In short, the Electoral College was created as a compromise of several different proposals by the nation's founders. Critics say the system allows candidates to become president without necessarily securing a majority of voters' support, which happened in 2000. Advocates argue it ensures less populated states aren't completely ignored. How are these people selected? The electors are chosen by their political parties in each state. The only rule is that they cannot currently hold office. Can an elector ignore the popular vote? Yes. It's called a faithless elector, but it's rare and it has never affected the outcome of an election. Some states require formal pledges enforced by fines and possible jail time. But historically speaking, members rarely depart from the will of the people.
Students at the University of Oregon had a really cool idea of how to dispose of pumpkins. Step 1, freeze them in liquid nitrogen. Step 2, drop them from 4 stories up. Bam! The hypothesis was that once these gourds were chilled to a temperature of negative 321 degrees Fahrenheit, they'd shatter on impact. Good call, y'all. Plus, while it might not beat pumpkin pie, pumpkin pancakes, pumpkin spice, or pumpkin cookies, it's clear they had a blast breaking pumpkin glass. Might put a chill in your bones to have to clean up all that frozen fruit, but they had a fine time making it. Stemmed from a really gourd idea, and if it grows on enough people, it could entertain nitro generations. I'm Carl Azuz for CNN Student News.